meantime, if you are using water there at home, in order to make it pure, you want to add 1 teaspoon of household bleach to every 5 gallons of water. If you're using snow, be sure not to just melt it, but boil it also. Right now, that is the latest we have to report from inside Civil Defense Headquarters here at the Public Safety Building in Anchorage, Alaska. We'll send it out now to the KENI camper parked outside. Look.
Okay, I have some messages here. I've been talking to Charlie Gray, and I haven't been able to talk to Darrell Comstock. His transmission has been too broken out in that area. I have a message here. Mr. and Mrs. Robert Heights were on their way to Indian House.
Inside the Civil Defense Headquarters here at the Public Safety Building at 5th and 6th and C. First of all, we have a very important message for all electricians and plumbers of Fort Richardson. All electricians and plumbers of Fort Richardson, please go to Building 700 immediately. All electricians and plumbers of Fort Rich, go to Building 700 immediately. Howard Forbes would like it be known that he will be at Mike Whitmore's. A message to Kenneth Sadler. Mrs. Sadler is fine. Kenneth Sadler is out in the bush and listens on a transistor radio. Mrs. Sadler is fine. A message to Walter Hart at Kenai. A message to Walter Hart at Kenai. Lee Hart is fine. Jim Murphy and Bill Somerville at Point Hope. Your families are A-OK. Mr. and Mrs. R.W. Fisher have lost their children. They can't find them. Mr. and Mrs. Fisher are at the home of Charles Ball. Mr. and Mrs. Fisher are at R.W. Fisher are at the home of Charles Ball. They have lost their children. Boy Scout troop that went overnight to McCute Creek left at 4 o'clock yesterday, due back today. Are due back tomorrow. Bill Noble would like to get a message, if at all possible, as to their whereabouts and if they are all right. Mel Flieger, we've received a call here at the fire station. Mel Flieger, who lives on 86th Avenue, the fire department dispatcher said it sounded like children calling, and they said, please come home. Mr. and Mrs. Dick Fisher are still here at the police headquarters at 6th and C, waiting for any word of their children. Their home went off the bluff. They're out there in the Turnagain area where we understand a great deal of damage took place. I have here a very interesting person I think can tell us about some of the damage out at International Airport. We have Chris von Imhoff, the Scandinavian Airways System Manager at International Airport, and he tells me that he was in the office. Is that right, Chris?
That's right.
On what floor is the office?
I was on the 2nd floor.
And what happened?
Well, when the first movement started, I didn't even know what was happening, and as it got stronger, I tried to go out to the ramp, and the doors were locked because they were already starting to rebuild the airport. So as it got stronger, I finally had no choice but jump out the window.
Were the windows already breaking from the...
Well, actually, I had first to slam through my foot, and none of them were broken, and so I got through and just cut myself a little bit on. And so just as I got out the window, I saw the flight tower, it just cracked together like a piece of match. It didn't fall, it more or less fell into itself. And just within seconds, it collapsed more or less.
In one spot, huh?
And as we ran right towards it, and we could see already some cracks on the runway a little bit right near the airport. Tried to help some of the people up there. One was just coming out. His head was bloody, but he was injured, but he seemed to be all right for the first few minutes. And one person who was jammed in, and I'm afraid he might be a fatality. That's not for sure yet. We were able to get out 2 people on the bottom who were in the flight kitchen, a waitress and a cook. It took us a half hour to dig them out with a saw and jacks and everything else. But
how many people in the area there managed to escape and assist in the rescue operations at International Airport?
I think in the flight tower, these were the only really injured people. The rest of them were able to run out somewhere or the other. So I think those 2 people which were in the flight kitchen and were jammed in for about an hour, plus that one person on the tower, that FAA man. I think these were the only 3 injured persons that I know of.
Was there any panic in the area at the time, Chris?
Oh, there certainly was. Everybody was...
Panic or just excitement?
For the first moment, there was panic. But as soon as it started to slow down, of course, everybody was still waiting for a second shock. But then it got organized pretty fast. There were some fire trucks and who tried to lift up the flight tower to help out this one man who was completely covered with rocks, and I think they got him out after about 10-15 minutes, but I don't know what his situation is. So altogether, when I left, it just looked worse than after the war, and I have been over there. It just is a terrible mess, and I think it's probably going to take weeks before they're going to start operations into airport again, probably before anyone will have to use Elmendorf.
You compared this to the way Europe looked during the war. Have you ever gone through an earthquake before?
I have never really experienced an earthquake like that, no. But, I mean, the end effect was the same. If there was a bomb blast, a major effect, or an earthquake. Except the bomb blast sometimes takes longer than this. Just take a few seconds and the whole tower and all the buildings collapsed. So the worst thing I've ever seen.
Well, we certainly do thank you, Chris, for this eyewitness account. By the way, how about the main portion of International Airport building? Did it collapse, or any of the walls collapse in it?
Some of the walls collapsed, and the inside, of course, all was all the kitchens and all the inside areas are completely unusable. Everything fell, but the walls itself, most places, are still standing. And
well, was this at a time when there were many passengers? Was there an incoming flight or outgoing flight or anything like this?
I think Alaska Airlines had just taken off 15 minutes before that, and I think it was the last large jet which was on the ground. So in that respect, it was kind of a fortunate time to have them. I just shortly thereafter, after the earthquake, I saw one jet. I didn't get a chance to see what carrier it was. Coming down and having more or less a look and seeing no tower, it probably decided to better find some other place.
Overhead.
I still don't know if this is regards to Fairbanks, what the situation is up there.
I don't either. We're trying to get word through KENI right now. We have a sister station in Fairbanks, KFAR, and we're trying to establish communications with them and attempt to find out what the situation is in Fairbanks. We do understand that the earthquake did cover rather extensively the entire area of Alaska. Well, we certainly do thank you, Chris Emhoff, and I hope that our ham operator, Walt Sauerbier, was able to get the message around to Copenhagen that your crews were all right, too.
Well,
they came here and asked us if there was any way to get the word out.
I think they're right now over at the hospital helping out with some serum, which I was very pleased to hear.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your help, Chris. It's been nice meeting you. That was Chris von Imhoff, the manager of Scandinavian Airways System, who has just given us an eyewitness account of the complete collapse of the International Airport flight tower and severe damage to the structure of the International Airport terminal. This is Genie Chance now, returning you to Bob Fleming downtown.
Bob, could I have it for just a second before you take it back? I just got word from Ty Clark at the transmitter that Broadway exchanges are now working, but only on other Broadway exchanges. In other words, Broadway is working inter-Broadway. And as Ty's wife and daughter are on the Broadway exchange, it would be certainly a great load off Ty's mind if they could call you at the station and let you know that they are okay. And Ty, if you're listening in, Jim and Charlie, Jim Dodson and Charlie Gray, are both on their way over to Government Hill in the ACS building there, and they probably will have a message for us probably in an hour or so when they can make it over there, as it is a long way around. And another very important message to the people of the Chugach area. The Chugach power plant is working again, and if all the people in the Chugach area would please turn off their main power, their power will be restored shortly. Once again, all the people in the Chugach area, your power plant is working again, but we have a request from the people at the power plant for everyone in the Chugach area, please turn off your main power switch.
Okay, the Forest Park Country Club sustained some damage. I don't think it's too severe, though, and everybody's okay there. The Bootleggers Cove area is rather on a higher ground, especially in relationship to the transmitter site. I'd say it's about 60 feet above sea level here. The tidal wave that has been forecast is not materialized as yet. With the amount of ice in the inlet, the shock may be somewhat absorbed. But anyway, we're standing by here at the transmitter, as all of our other units, and as soon as Charlie Gray and Jim Dodson make it to the ACS toll building on Government Hill, we'll be able to get some of these reports out to the South 48. in addition to what has already been received in that area. I made a survey of some of the other areas out there, apart from Turnagain. I was curious about my own home, which is in the Woodland Park area, and apparently there wasn't too much damage up there. My own house is a complete mess, but structurally it does appear to be sound. I talked to some people in that neighborhood, and while quite shaken up, there is no major damage in that area. In Spenard, along Spenard Road, most of the businesses there have suffered at least minor damage. Some of the markets have been boarded up now with big sheets of plywood, and there's damage all along the Spenard Road there, but I see no cases of total collapse of any of the buildings there. That's about all.
We've felt more than a dozen tremors out here since the big one, since I've been out here at the transmitter site. However, the length of time between the last one has been considerable. It's been about 40 minutes now since the last tremor that we've felt out here. So maybe these aftershocks are beginning to dissipate, and the Earth once more is settling down. We hope so anyway. But it's not unusual for to feel aftershocks for a period of up to 24 hours after a big jolt.
This is the third or fourth big quake I've gone through. 3 in California, which one happened a lot, earthquake, and he said that this was more severe. So we know that we've had a major quake here in the area, and it certainly has been a devastating one. And we're standing by here at the transmitter. There's probably more action at other points out along the line, so we'll turn it back to Bob Fleming downtown.
Hi, Bob. Hello.
Okay, we have a lot of messages down here. I'm talking to Mrs. Earl Hillstrand, and she asked me if we could get our hand crew to find out more about damage and so forth down at Land's End. Ms. Hillstrand will try and get it. Okay, Otto, you riding it out there?
Yes, I was just giving another shaking up a bit here. I went to Mike or Alec Rodner, who would like to have the Chryslers know if they are okay. He would like to know if they are okay, and he says, we are okay. And I had a message from Mr. May Schemes at 3125 Richmond in Mountain View. He says his power line was ripped from his house, and it is hanging from the pole right now, and he'd like the power company to know about this. Mountain View, 3125 Richmond, a 200-volt line. That's all I have here, Bob.
Okay, you were saying you're going to try to get a call out to them, huh? Okay, if you can get them, have
stop our hearts.
Yeah, to stop our hearts a little bit, Dolly said. But it didn't amount to much. These are some of the tremors that are bound to come after major earthquakes such as we suffered here this afternoon. These earthquakes, these tremors are they just follow, you know. And I think you bring you some coffee, and I'm getting a telephone call. Hello, KENI. Just a minute. Let me get you on the telephone here. Earl was Harold Anderson?
To Harold Anderson?
Yeah.
Probably staying at Earl Hollis.
To Genie Chance inside.
Yes, Genie Chance inside Civil Defense Headquarters here at the Public Safety Building at the corner of 6th and C in Anchorage. We would like to reiterate the warning that a tidal wave is expected in the Anchorage area. We have received word that it can be expected in this area at any time. We have no idea how high it is, what its intensity is. We understand the damage was somewhat extensive, and we also understand that after it hit and pulled back, it dropped some 20 to 30 feet, and they are now bracing themselves in Cordova for the second slap of that tidal wave. This is quite a common occurrence now for a second tidal wave to hit after the first one has pulled out. We do not know how hard it will hit here in Anchorage. However, it probably will lose some of its force by the time it reaches here, but we want to warn people once again, in the lowland areas, in those tideland areas that have been built up as residential areas, from L Street out toward the inlet, head for higher ground, because it is better to take precautions now before a tidal wave hits than to be sorry later. This tidal wave is on its way. We understand, after talking to some officials here of the Alaskan Command that tidal waves are being felt clear down as far as Japan as a result of this earthquake that has shaken Alaska. The intensity of the earthquake has not been determined as yet, nor has the center point of the earthquake been announced yet, but it has been severe enough that tidal waves are being expected, rather large tidal waves are being expected as far away as Japan. It has already hit Kodiak. We understand that Kodiak sustained terrific damage. We understand too that Juneau has been hit by it, Seward and Homer, and as we said, the report was, we don't know what the damage was in those places, and we don't actually know what the damage was in Cordova, but we understand that when the tidal wave dropped, it receded some 20 feet. We are very fortunate right now that the tidal wave will hit at a time when we do have low tide. We do have a low tide, and so it will possibly diminish some of the difficulties brought on by this tidal wave, but please, any of you in the lowland areas, get out of those lowland areas and head for the hills. The tidal wave is expected to hit at this point almost any time. We have been asked once again by the state police to contact Chuck Drummond. Chuck Drummond of Do Alaska is requested to notify one of the police agencies as to your whereabouts. If you do not have transportation, we can furnish it for you, but he is needed urgently to install the chlorinator at Providence Hospital. Just in case we cannot locate Chuck Drummond, if anybody else is capable of installing the chlorinator at Providence Hospital, and they do need it, and they need it desperately, would you please contact either the state police or the city police, or go to your nearest fire station and tell them you are available. We can get the word then over the shortwave communications. We have here a fellow from the Alaska Railroad. He would like for us to contact Elton Juergens of Seward. He would like a complete report on the damage to the railroad facilities at Seward, the cranes, the dock facilities, warehouses, and the rolling stock. So if Elton Juergens of Seward can pick up our report down there, Alaska Railroad would like a complete report as soon as possible as to the damage of the railroad facilities, cranes, dock facilities, warehouses, and the rolling stock. I tell you, we also have a shortwave operator parked right down here at the end of the building, and he has made contact with Seward. Maybe he could help you, put you in contact with one of the hams in Seward. We are still having a number of people coming in and offering their services here in the public safety building. I believe everything is pretty well under control, and survey teams are beginning to come in and report extensive damage throughout the city, particularly in the Turnagain area as well as in downtown. International Airport was hit rather hard, as well as there was some damage at the military bases. General Reeves has been in here now conferring with Civil Defense, Civil Air Patrol, City Police, City Fire Department, as well as John Alcantara of the Governor's Office. All of the state of Alaska, all of the military installations, all military and civilian personnel have turned to and are giving a terrific effort right now on an evaluation, search, and rescue. Once again, let us remind you, please, anybody who has been too confident and decided to remain in the low areas, feeling that the tidal wave will lose all of its punch before it reaches Anchorage, please don't give up. Please don't be overconfident. Get out of those low-lying areas, because it is expected to hit here in Anchorage at any minute now, according to some very reliable reports that we have received through military communications in the state of Alaska. This is Genie Chance now, returning you to the downtown headquarters.
One moment, Bob, before you take it again. We've just had several requests from shortwave, our guys on shortwave, to get in contact with Charlie Gray and have him get in touch with Fairbanks through ACS, and I just
talked to Don Anden in Fairbanks, and he reports that there is little or no damage in Fairbanks, but you'll be interested to know, Bob, that they have been copying our feed. ACS is feeding Fairbanks, and we are simulcasting the bulk of our broadcast to Fairbanks right now.
Boy, when he stops, he stops. Yes, Ray, go ahead.
Jim is up making a feed now to San Antonio, Texas, and I might pass on that Don Anden is taking the information off the wire and making the feeds to the states for us. They have communications up there, Bob.
Oh, that's wonderful, isn't that? That's really good to hear. I'm awful happy to hear that, because we've been real concerned about these messages. We had a report that KGO in San Francisco had reported Anchorage as being flattened, you know, and we had another similar report out of Vancouver, BC, that one of those BC stations had reported us leveled or flattened. And so if we can get somebody on there who'll give them some more accurate on-the-scene reports, I think probably it'll relieve a few minds down there, too. Did you have another report here? Or?
No, well, go ahead.
Oh, I see. He's counting his money here, for heaven's sake. In the middle of the whole thing. Well, we have no more messages from down here, but let's check through with, unless Otto, I imagine that Otto has a few messages from in there. Otto, how you doing? Do you have messages? He's on the phone right now. And any of the reporters, like the Kenai Camper, if you have a message, now's the time.
Thank you, I do. And Mr. Warren Griffith, or Griffin, we're not sure of the last names. Once again, Dr. David Duncan and Mr. Warren Griffith, or possibly Griffin, call radio station KFQD at first possible opportunity.
Okay, you say that Don Anden is copying us up there, carrying our feed. You have a message to go to Fairbanks, Don Hill?
Yeah, this is probably against all regulations, but Don, if you're copying, I'd like to have you call Dad at Fireside 6, 1711, Palm Desert, California. Tell him that everyone here is okay. We have substantial damage, but everything is fine.
Okay, incidentally, the apartment upstairs is fine. There's no damage up there, I don't think. That message went to Fairbanks and on to Palm Desert, California, we hope. And I imagine that if Don Anden is listening also, Don, you might place some phone calls around to call Seattle at Mutual 21854, and I think that the KOL newsroom down there will be real happy to get a report from you. I imagine they've waited for a report from me, but I have not been able to call out. And also, KMPC in Hollywood at 462-8440, operator 651. 462-8440, operator 651, KMPC, Los Angeles. I can remember, because do you know of any earthquake as severe as this that's hit this area before, Don?
No, there was a severe one we thought was severe in 35. I know we lived in a little house on 3rd and K, and we just poured our concrete wall, and it did break that wall. It was green. I think it had been poured that day or the day before. But I think we've had on occasion when we broke a window in the taller buildings, we've shaken the cups and saucers off all the cupboards and so on. They've been on the floor numerous times, but nothing like this. This is just beyond all comprehension as far as anybody I know around here.
You know, Don, I happen to be in the basement of the Presbyterian Hospital. I was down in the cafeteria having a cup of coffee when this hit. And this is what is that, about a 3- or 4-story building? The Presbyterian Hospital. It's a concrete, well-built building. And the sensation, I'd like, if you'd like a description of what it felt like down there in that basement, you wouldn't think that a concrete basement would do as much bucking and swaying, but it started out trembling like they do, and then it started a sort of a rolling motion that almost made you dizzy, and then toward the end, I was looking across the room. I'd gotten over in a door jamb, and I had 2 nurses there with me. I was trying to keep them from dashing out. One of them had children at home, and she wanted to run, and I was trying to keep her from running, and she did. She calmed down. She was okay, but we were looking across the room, and she said, "Look at it swing," and that's just exactly what it looked like. It looked like that entire basement of that concrete building was on a swinging back and forth, and of course, being in a cafeteria, dishes. And equipment, the coffee makers, those glass coffee makers came piling down, and silverware and sugar containers were crashing on the floor, and I heard it crash down the hall. Of course, there was a lot of noise during all of this. I heard it crash down the hall, And after of course, after the earthquake was over, it subsided, went down the hall in the dark and stumbled over another machine, a big Coke machine or one of these soft drink dispensers. And then went upstairs. Dolly works in the clinic just on this first floor up, and she had weathered out the earthquake at that point. And we went up to the third floor where the hospital, the main hospital is. And of course it was full of patients. And there was the damage was just tremendous up there. Everything had come down. And these big containers of ether had opened up, and the place was full of the fumes of ether. We began to smell gas. And many of the patients were immediately post-operative, and they were extremely upset, and worried, and we began evacuating these people, you know. And there was at that moment, as naturally, there was one woman in labor who was about to deliver a baby, and we took her and put her in the car, and the doctor said, "Take her to Providence Hospital right now." And then as we were ready to leave, they said, "Make an ambulance out of this. We have a lady here who had just had a gallbladder operation. We're going to put her in there and they put her in there. We took the whole thing out there, and of course, it was the traffic was tremendous. It took us quite a while to get out there, and when we got there, we found Providence Hospital was overflowing at that point. They were everybody that they could find was working, and this was just one person's view of it. When we looked out as I was going through the hospital there and talking to some of the people before the doctors arrived and trying to help do whatever we could do, we looked out at L Street, and we could see that in one point the street had sunk maybe, I don't know, it looked like 15, 20 feet, and also another street had sunk, and the houses had just dropped into chasms, and cars were in holes and down the street. It was Anchorage today suffered a major earthquake disaster.
Well, that was very close to a very high damage area in back of the old Providence. Of course, they had the new Four Seasons apartment under construction, and it came down, and it's a pile of rubble, and that's about all. And going on down 9th towards the inlet where you get into where the tennis court was and off-time skating rink, that skating rink is now about 15 feet down in a hole. And those homes along the bluff are really extensive.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Don. I have Kay Guthrie on the line. Kay, you were what were you saying to me that we were cutting in and out there for a moment?
Yeah, Bob. Well, there's a lot of people wondering about their families and so on coming in on airlines.
Uh-huh.
And this seems to be a big question. I wonder if you had any information. I talked to George Chirac on PNA, and the only information that we could get was that there has been damage on the runway out there at the airport, and that no major airlines are landing. I'm wondering, do you have any information where they're diverting these airlines? Are they diverting to Fairbanks?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we do. They've diverted quite a few of them, I understand, to Kenai, which didn't suffer too much damage. And I think Don Hill has information on that, Don.
Well, I don't think it's as much damage to the runway, Bob. As I understand it, it's just the loss of runway lights, so they'd be landing in the dark.
And also I understand the tower went control.
Well, there's no ground control approach facilities, but daylight operation, they should come in. The runway itself, I heard at least, was all right.
Then it kind of answer your question there, Kay?
Yeah, if you're tied into Fairbanks, if Mr. Gebhardt is up there and landed with PNA, his family is with us and are fine.
Uh-huh.
And I'd like to kind of convey that message. People are doing a wonderful job tonight, and I imagine you're going to be up there all night.
I imagine we will, Kay, and thank you very much. We're doing the best we can with one telephone line, and we do have the entire crew out working. Everybody, as a matter of fact, the radio car has been calling in and saying, asking me if I knew someplace where they could go next. Well, they could go almost any place and find lots of information.
Right. I know your Kenai campers down at the police station down there. They're doing a very fine job.
Okay, Kay. Thank you very much for calling.
Right, Bob. Thank you.
I have a call from the Kenai camper, so take it.
I have several messages here. First, Providence Hospital needs a pump to supply water pressure to the...
This is Ty Clark at the KENI transmitter at Bootlegger's Cove. We're maintaining a vigil out here. At the transmitter, we're on auxiliary power, as you know, And we have water now in the building, and we do have heat as well. So I think we are enjoying some of the luxuries that other Anchorage families are not enjoying here tonight. I'd like to mention that the people that are here in the building with me, we have the Chet Highland family is safe here. The E. Scott family is safe. And we also have Don and Rosemary Porter here with us, along with the Bob Hastings family and myself. It's been practically impossible for me to get to the downtown area, but we have enough help down there, so I'm going to stay here at the transmitter with this radio for an indefinite period of time. We have a good vantage point here at the transmitter site at Bootlegger's Cove, overlooking Cook Inlet, and there's been no evidence as yet of any activity in Cook Inlet in relationship to the reported tidal wave that is coming this way. If there is, you will hear from us real quick-like. Repeating about, recalling something that Bob Fleming said about being in a concrete building, we were in the basement of the Lathrop building downtown when the earthquake struck, as were the Hastings and Mrs. Porter, and it was a terrible experience for us all because we have felt earth tremors before in the basement of the Lathrop building, which is several feet underground, and it had to be a pretty good shake, a pretty good jolt to even be felt in the basement of the building. But this one, of course, as Don Hill so ably described it earlier in our broadcast this evening, that we were bobbing around like corks in a bottle, and that's exactly the way it felt to me. We were completely helpless down there. There was no chance to get to the upper part of the building or to get out on the street, and we feared for a time that the top of the building would collapse. However, it did ride out the jolt real well. We did not lose any portion of our television tower atop the Lathrop building, which we're thankful for. We did lose the microwave section, and we've lost the top stage of our radio tower out here at Bootlegger's Cove, so we're broadcasting on reduced power. The transmitter building itself out here at Bootlegger's Cove did come through the ordeal fairly well. We have lost our a portion of our plumbing, the hot water section. We have cold water, and most of the basement is flooded, and there are a few cracks in the building, and the foundation has been loosened somewhat, but overall I would say that the condition of the transmitter building is good. All of our neighbors around here are in good shape, the McCarrys and the Gagney family at Forest Park, Leo Supper Club, and our neighbors across the way here. This has been a pretty good place here. We've had several tremors here. We've had one tremor in the last 30 minutes, which was just a mild one. We have the children bedded down for the night. We're going to spend the night here as well. And we hope that everybody along the line that's listening is in good shape and has assistance where needed. We know that Anchorage is going to spend a very tense night tonight, and this is a day that we will all remember for many years to come. All right, let's go back now to Bob Fleming.
We've just had a couple of messages here. I'll transmit quick, then switch to that Kenai camper. Ralph Alt called. Ralph Alt from Kenai.
All right, here I am talking to Jack Capon, managing editor of the Anchorage Daily News, and to Bill Tobin of the Anchorage Times. Bill, you said now that you were down there at Penny's at the time this hit. Tell us about it. What happened?
I was just parking in front of Penny's on 5th Street when the quake started, and I was just about pulled into the curb and was aware of the shaking, of course, and thought initially that someone behind me was plumping into the car. And when I finally became aware that an earthquake had hit, it was most obvious just by people in the streets, running in the street. So I got out of the car, left the motor running, and got into the middle of 5th Street with, maybe 15, 20 people who were out there. And we stood more or less holding each other up. And within about, time is difficult to tell, a couple of minutes maybe, the walls of Penny's began to shear off. And the The cars parked at the curb, including mine, were just buried under the rubble. But I saw no indication of anyone in the street being injured at that time.
And then I guess you proceeded down to the Anchorage Times building to survey any damage there?
I started running for the Times building. A woman stopped and gave me a ride, and she turned at the corner of Holy Family Church. I went inside and ran into Father Murphy and told him that the Penny's building looked very badly damaged, and that suggested that he should go down there right away, which he did. And I went into the Times building, and the building appeared all right, but inside was a shambles.
How about your equipment?
Hard to tell. It was just buried under all kinds of glass and debris.
Do you think you will be able to go to press in the morning?
I wouldn't have any way of knowing, but I doubt it. We have no power anyway.
I understand you have gotten word out to the AP, to the outside world.
We've gotten word to the AP at Juneau, which still has communications, landlines or undersea cable, and then through to Seattle in a couple of messages through ham radio operators.
Good. Thank you, Bill. And Jack Capon, I understand, were you at the Daily News building at the time this happened?
Yes, I was. I was in the office typing away when this thing happened, and of course, as Bill has graphically described it, everything began to sway. At first, I thought it was just a routine tremor, so to speak, and then very obviously, as the walls began to crack, it wasn't. Our staff, we were just skeleton at that time. It was about 5:30 in the evening, roughly about that time.
5:36.
5:36, well, that's where we figured it. We decided to go out into the street, which we did, and the utility poles were swaying, and a water main blew up across the street from us, and big cracks opened in the pavement at our feet, and huge trailer trucks parked in the back of the Daily News building toppled over on their side. As far as our own operation is concerned, we're a shambles. It's hard to say just how extensive the damage is. It's serious. The building was damaged in at least 2 corners. One wall caved in. And I, just as Bill says, I'm very doubtful that we'll publish tomorrow. We'll try, but I'm very doubtful.
You then have no way to estimate what condition your equipment is in either?
No, I can't say. The damage is extensive, but it depends on just exactly how much of the machinery actually was destroyed or damaged, and it'll take us about 2 days actually to estimate how much the damage was, but it's extensive.
It is extensive. Do you have any other observations of the general scene, either then or now, Bill Tobin?
Well, just the city itself is incredible, just to walk around and see it all dark, and I'm impressed by the way things are being run here, which certainly are orderly. They seem to be getting things done. We still have no official indication of what the losses are, except we all find no argument with the mayor's word that the damage is very extensive.
Well, we have received word, too, that this earthquake has had extensive reaches throughout the state of Alaska, and that though they have not been able to pinpoint the center of the earthquake, nor have they been able to establish the intensity of it, that it has been severe enough. They are expecting, or possibly have already had, terrific tidal waves as far away as Japan, I believe.
Well, you have later information than I've been able to see, but it's certainly the type of thing you expect in this.
I understand that down in Kodiak, everybody on Kodiak went to high ground, and that when the tidal wave hit there was extensive damage. However, there's no way of knowing precisely what the damage is, nor what, if any, loss of life occurred. The same way with other coastal areas around Alaska. Cordova was hit, and we have not received word if the second tidal wave has hit them yet. Have you any idea how long it takes for the second tidal wave to come in?
No, I'm no tidal wave man at all, and my only other experience with one was at Juneau with the Latuya Bay earthquake 4 or 5 years ago. but I'm afraid it's going to be some hours before we really have any idea of what the extent is throughout the area.
Now, as Police Chief John Flanagan has said, we are primarily waiting for daylight so that survey teams can go out and complete surveying the rubble and the damage. By the way, we have had a request from the District Engineer's Office to request that all employees of the District Engineers and anyone else who is qualified to estimate property loss and damage, please report to the District Engineer's Office at 8 a.m. tomorrow. All employees of the District Engineers and anyone else qualified to estimate property loss and damage, please report to the District Engineers 8 a.m. tomorrow. We have another message that Bob DeLoach is all right. He's been working here at Civil Defense Headquarters in the Public Safety Building all along. His family doesn't know where he is, but Bob DeLoach is all right. We've also received word that DeBar Road is very slick. It is extremely hazardous. So anybody traveling on DeBar Road, please drive with caution. We understand the hill coming down there right along in the vicinity of the dog pound and the city prison farm is unusually dangerous. So if you're coming upon that hill, drive with extreme caution, for DeBar Road is reported to be in very serious condition. Yes, Cass, did you have something to say? We're on the air.
London is calling, wants to talk with somebody from a news media. They'll be on the line. Can somebody come forward and talk with them?
Yes, I'll be very happy to. I'll be with you in just a moment. All right, we have to make a report to London right now, so we will return KENI to the downtown studios.
I can take it for just a second, Bob, if you have a minute.
Okay, go right ahead.
Thank you. We have several messages, and I'd like to alert Fairbanks that we're going to have 2 messages for them to relay in just a moment after we get through with these local messages.
Buildings. You have your report for the East 5th Avenue area?
Okay, thank you, Bob. We've just made a trip out. We have to go out through Mountain View to get onto the into the ACS office there, where we've been making some reports to Fairbanks and down in San Antonio. We've just come back and driven along East 5th Avenue. And the major damage out here is in all new buildings. The 5th Avenue Chrysler Center is collapsed. The front portion of it, the big window portion of it there, is completely collapsed. I noticed the back shop area is, the roof is still on there, but the whole front has just collapsed, just fell right out forward. Also, the new Alaska Sales and Service building, which is not completed, it was not completed. It is very, very badly damaged. It looks like a bomb might have hit it or something. There's a lot of steel that the concrete was shaken right off it and twisted and fallen right on down. So these 2 brand new buildings, which were just put up in less than a year, Alaska Sales isn't even up yet officially, but they have been completely demolished. Now we've just passed the also another new building, which is the Friendly Ford building, and they didn't even lose any windows in that one. That's about all the real major damage on East 5th Avenue. I noticed some lights have started to come on again. The outpost is on. The Civil Defense Headquarters is fully active, and they've set up a real big radio net all set up. So that's about the extent of the damage on East 5th Avenue. 2 major buildings just demolished, but the other buildings along the way, a few windows broken here and there, but that's about it. Okay, Bob, back to you.
Well, thank you very much. I just was taking cognizance of all the KENI crew that's working, and practically the entire crew is working now. I sort of hoping that some of us would be grabbing a few hours sleep, while so that those of us who are up right now will later on be able to lie down for a little while and get a little sleep, because it's going to be quite a while before the reporting part of this will begin to subside. In fact, as the daylight hours come around in the morning, the reports probably will get more vivid and more descriptive than they are now as soon as the crab sunk.
Oh, you mean on L Street there?
No, not L Street, but on 4th Avenue. L Street.
Oh, no, I haven't been down there, Bob.
I'm sure. I heard about a big sink.
We were down there. It's from D. It's on the north side of 4th Avenue from D to just past Bagoy's, Bob. The Denali Theater, you can walk right in the 2nd floor. The theater is down.
One full story.
One full story. It's about 15 feet at least. In some areas it's down more than that. I'm guessing up to 30 feet. And that whole, right from the edge of the pavement, the whole 2-block area, or a little better, 2.5-block area, is just down. It's just slid right down. The buildings are still sitting there, most of the glass is out of them. And I don't think anybody was hurt too bad in there. It did go pretty slow.
Mm-hmm.
But it's reminiscent a little bit of some of the mudslides that some of the people witnessed in California, where they just moved buildings right down the hillside.
Well, this was not just a little tremor we had in Anchorage. We had a major earthquake. Somebody came and asked me a while ago what intensity this earthquake would be on the Richter scale.
Right up the end.
We don't know. It shook the scale clear down the side of the hill. Well, we have a couple of messages here. The McKenzie children are okay. And
Bob, we're about ready to bed down for the night out here with all the families that are staying here tonight, and I think we'll do this, and I'll get a couple hours sleep and then try to make my way into town to relieve you in the morning. How would that be? Over.
Well, that would suit me just fine. In fact, the sooner the quicker. Thank you very much, Tyler. Go get a good night's sleep there, and you'll be ready to hit it in the morning.
Are available to those in need,
Yeah?
but they must come to the public safety building and receive emergency authorization.
Can you hold it just 1 second?
City manager here in Anchorage, emergency
Just one.
to those who are desperately in need. Report first of all to the public safety building here and receive written authorization. And we've also received reports confirmed. We've received reports through the city manager of Anchorage confirmed by one of the top generals here in Anchorage that the oil tanks of both companies and the docks are on fire in Seward. We received this report through the city manager here in Anchorage. It was confirmed through General Reeves that both the oil tanks and docks are on fire at Seward. Bob?
Thank you very much for that report. I'm sorry I didn't get the very first part of it. I may have missed, but I was getting a report from ACS. They had a call from radio station KLAM in Cordova that their communications are out. The tidal wave washed away their tower. Their 150-foot tower has washed away. They don't know where it is, Charlie.
Bob, could I get in here for a minute?
Bet you.
The ACS fellas...
In fact, if you'd like to sit down here...
No. The ACS fellas, we're getting battery on the teletype machine. We're getting battery, and we're trying to talk back to you. We have you patched in now, but we aren't receiving anything from you here at KENI on the teletype. So if you could possibly get on that circuit, the boys are trying to talk to you on the teletype circuit.
Okay, I hope that message got through to ACS. That was Charlie Gray. He's our chief engineer, and yesterday afternoon, the 27th of March, we sustained a major earthquake here in Anchorage, Alaska. In fact, the earthquake was felt over much of the south-central portion of Alaska. It was felt in Seward and Kenai Soldotna area, Homer, which is known as Land's End. That's on the tip of the Kenai Peninsula, and also in Valdez and Cordova up on Prince William Sound. And the earthquake was a severe one. Many buildings in Anchorage have crumbled and fallen to the ground. Many of the streets have sinkholes as much as 20 to 30 feet. Houses toppled. As yet, we don't know the extent of damage. There's no way for us here at night. It came just as night was falling. No way for us to assess the total damage. Also, there's no way to for us to estimate the number of persons who have been injured. Your reporter here happened to have been in a hospital at the time. I was in the hospital as a visitor at the time of the earthquake, and it was a solid concrete structure which rocked and rolled and swayed and finally wound up in a swinging motion that literally wrecked it. The lights, of course, went out. There was ether and gas released in the building. We had to evacuate the patients as fast as possible. Many of them were moved.
All right, this is Genie Chance reporting from inside Civil Defense Headquarters here at the Public Safety Building in Anchorage at the corner of 6th and C. We have received word through our HEM operator setup from Seward that the two docks owned by the oil companies down there at Seward are currently on fire. Now, as I say, this is not an official police report, but this is word that has reached us through the ham radio operator setup. Ham reports, the amateur radio reports out of Kodiak about 10 minutes ago indicate that 2 tidal waves had hit that island in the Aleutian chain, that currently there is about 10 to 14 feet of water in the streets. The docks and the houses on the waterfront have been washed away. It is not known at this time if there was any loss of life. We had heard earlier from rather official source that it was believed that most of the people had managed to head for high ground. So our hope at this time is that the loss of life on Kodiak will be minor. However, we do have the report through our ham radio network that currently there is between 10 to 14 feet of water in the streets of Kodiak, that the docks and houses on the waterfront have been washed away. We have received word from the state police that the Eagle River Bridge is passable. We had gotten word earlier that it was not passable and people were discouraged from going in that area. However, state police have surveyed the situation. They assure us that the Eagle River Bridge is passable. We received a call from Joe Fernbeck, who said that he had gotten word on his car radio from the oil crews at Beluga and Tyonek. They want their families to know that they are all okay. They have received no high water at Beluga and Tyonek yet. They have received no damage. There were no injuries. However, the families of the men in the oil crews at Beluga and Tyonek would like to get some word about their families to find out if their families here in Anchorage came through this earthquake all right. So if the families of the men at Beluga and Tyonek could possibly get word to KENI, don't try to call us here at the police station because the switchboard here at the police station is extremely busy right now, and any real emergency messages, of course, will be handled immediately. But for these personal messages, KENI Radio is very happy to put them out over the air. If you can contact us at the Kenai Camper out in front of the Public Safety Building here at the corner of 6th and C Street, or if you could contact KENI Studios downtown in the 4th Avenue Theater building. And the families of the fellows at Beluga and Tyonek would like to find out how their families have fared. I had the pleasure of talking to a newspaper in London a short time ago. They were able to get through. It is one of the very few long-distance calls that have been handled in or out of Anchorage, and they were very eager to find out what had taken place here in Anchorage and what help could possibly be forthcoming from their area. I assured them that we knew of nothing right now that the people from London could give us but their prayers. He assured us that we had that. We will be talking to London again in approximately 6 hours to give them a later up-to-date report of the situation here at Anchorage after daylight has arrived and we are able to make a little more thorough survey of the damage and the loss that we have truly suffered during this holy season. This is Genie Chance now, returning you to the downtown studios.
Okay, Charlie, go ahead and tell them what you have.
Right, I would like to get a hold of the ACS test toll again. Okay. The boys are on the line, and they'd like to have the ACS test toll call in on 7609.
Give his announcement on the air.
This is an announcement for Mr. Joe Columbus or any other fuel dealer that may be able to assist. Our turbine power supply down at the turbine site is running low on oil, and we would like oil delivered as quickly as possible to the diesel site. Thank you.
All right, any fuel oil dealer who can assist us, they need some diesel fuel oil down at the site of the turbine site, the generator. We have a message here from Northwest Airlines saying that the crew cannot locate stewardess Beverly Johns. The crew cannot locate stewardess Beverly Johns. The crew is at the YMCA building. Beverly Johns is requested to contact them at the YMCA building. We have a report from state police that there are no injuries at Kenai. No injuries reported at Kenai. This is a report from state police. There seems to have been a mix-up in messages involving chlorinators. The chlorinator, we're happy to report, has been installed at Providence Hospital. Chuck Drummond did arrive. It has been installed. However, the Air Force had brought in 6 chlorinators that had been requested in case they were needed in other places. Somehow there was a mix-up, and they came by the public safety building here and got the idea that they were not needed since Providence...
Well, we seem to have had a little... Would you mind turning that thing down there a little bit? All of a sudden we get a lot of fry out of the Kenai camper. I don't know exactly what happened down there, whether we...
Kicked it what?
Kicked the... Okay, you kicked it back in now. You ready to go again?
Yes, we're ready to go again. The plug got kicked here and we ran out of power. I thought maybe it was one of those little trimmers. I don't know if you sitting up there in the studio have felt it or not, but we did feel a slight tremor here at the public safety building at 1 o'clock, or about 2 minutes after 1 o'clock, and at 10 minutes after 1, we felt another one. Now then, back to this problem of the chlorinators. If the fellows from Elmendorf are listening, the ones who thought that the chlorinators would not be needed and took them back to Elmendorf, Donald Penner of the Greater Anchorage Health District, the sanitation engineer, has requested that those 6 chlorinators be returned to the public safety building. We don't know if they will be needed or where or when they will be needed, but we would like to have them here so that when an emergency call comes in, we can rush them out and install them as needed. So if the Air Force men with the chlorinators would return them to the public safety building, we would be mighty beholden to you. We have word from Fort Beluga. Is that Fort Beluga? The Frank Smith family is at the home of Red Dodge. So Frank Smith at Beluga, your family is safe and at the home of Red Dodge. There, I also have received a report from a person who is monitoring stations from the lower 48 states. He said that one Seattle station reported that Seattle felt an earthquake at precisely the same time that the tragic quake hit Anchorage here. He said, according to this radio report out of Seattle, the Space Needle swayed. Apparently there was no damage, but it was felt to the point that the Space Needle swayed. This person monitoring outside, Bob Nelson, said that Juneau Station reported that an area in Louisiana also had an earthquake at approximately the same time. He heard Sacramento, California station broadcast that small tidal waves in Hawaii had occurred and that the islands were bracing themselves. They were expecting more. We had received an earlier report that tidal waves were being expected as far away as Japan. We have also, of course, received the report that the quake was felt as far away as Houston, Texas, and that there have been tidal waves all up and down the California coast. Once again, we might say that for Frank Smith at Beluga, your family is safe and at Red Dodge's house. Right now, no, I started to say that is all, but we do want to remind these key personnel of the city to report at 3 a.m. at the Public Safety Building in the upstairs. A staff meeting will be held. It is at this staff meeting that plans will be made for the operations that will be carried on here in the Greater Anchorage area tomorrow. I will be sitting in as an observer on this conference, offering the services of KENI Radio in any way possible, and when it is determined how the operations tomorrow will progress, KENI Radio will fit in where we are needed and do our best to carry on 24 hours a day. We have another message to Mr. Nolfi, N-O-L-F-I, in Cordova at the Northern Hotel. The message says, your family has been contacted and everything is okay. Mr. Nolfi in Cordova at the Northern Hotel, your family has been contacted, everything is okay. Don Andrews is asked to call the Spenard Volunteer Fire Department. Don Andrews called Spenard Volunteer Fire Department or Fox. Don Andrews called Spenard Volunteer Fire Department or Fox. Yes?
We just got word from a representative of the YMCA that they are putting up additional beds down there. They do have additional space, so if anyone is still without shelter, there is room for them at the Y.
Before we go off the air, I understand that KFAR in Fairbanks is monitoring us and is relaying messages to the South 48. I wonder if the person in KFAR would take down a message for me and get the word to my family in Bonham, Texas, that the Chance family is all right. That is Bonham, B-O-N-H-A-M, Texas. Place a collect call to Judge A.S. Broadfoot, B-R-O-A-D-F-O-O-T, at Bonham, Texas, and tell him that the Chance family is all right. I'll appreciate this if the message can get to Texas, for I know that my family, as well as everybody else's, is very concerned over the safety of their loved ones up here. I've been so involved trying to assist down here in the coordination of the message service at the Civil Defense headquarters that I really hadn't stopped to think how worried and concerned my parents must be. So if my friends in Fairbanks would please call collect Judge A.S. Broadfoot, Bonham, Texas, and tell them the Chance family is all right. All 5 of us are safe. None of us received a scratch. We have another message here to Anselewskis at Soldotna. Anseluskis at Soldotna, and G. Oskolkoff at Ninilchik. To Anseluskis at Soldotna and to G. Oskolkoff at Ninilchik. Your relatives in Anchorage are all right. Signed, Bill and Alice Bowens. A message to Clyde with W-Y-T-H-E at Homer. Your daughter is okay. Damage at 4th and Cordova Light. Signed, Nelda. Message to Clyde with or wife, W-Y-T-H-E at Homer. Your daughter is okay. Signed, Nelda. I believe that's all the messages we have at the quarters here at the Public Safety Building at the corner of 6th and C. We have some additional information here that I would like to pass on. The FHA Director, Elmer Gagnon, wishes us to repeat the request that all real estate people, all appraisers, everybody who is thoroughly qualified to appraise property loss or damage is requested to come to the Public Safety Building. You want the property appraisers at the library too? Okay, to appraise the damage of buildings and streets. They need typists with or without manual typewriters. Please, it's going to have to be with manual typewriters because we don't have electricity there yet. With the typewriter without. Oh, okay. You bring your typewriter if you possibly can. It would have to be a manual typewriter. They also will need draftsmen and engineering architects, real estate salesmen, appraisers, building estimators, report writers, and mathematicians. These people are asked to report to the C.J. Lusac Library on F Street between 4th and 5th Avenues at 8 o'clock this morning. These are the supplies and equipment that will also be needed at that area in order to make a complete survey of the loss and damage here in the Anchorage area. Clipboards, colored pencils, 3x5 cards, tablets, engineering paper, matte pens, and a city map. So if anybody has some of this that they can let this group have, who will be doing the appraisal of the damage in the Anchorage area, that could also be delivered to the Lusac Library. We have a message here to Robin, or from Robin, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Augie Hebert. Robbie is with the Smith family at the Oldland home in College Village, all well. So Robin Hebert is with the Smith family at the Oldland home in College Village. Augie and Pat don't need to worry about Robin. We have a message here, too, that Ruby Meek and family, also Bessie Jones and family, and Ted Kepenock family are all right and are at home. We have received a call from Whitehorse, Yukon Territory, from Bill Cameron Sr. Mr. Cameron informed us that he and his wife had left Anchorage day before yesterday en route to the South 48. They were at Whitehorse when they got the word of the tragedy here. They would like their daughter, Mary Caston, of 825 I Street, or their son, Bill Cameron Jr., who stays at the YMCA, to call him collect at the Taku Hotel, room 111 in Whitehorse. This is Bill Cameron Jr., who's staying at the YMCA, or Mary Caston, who lives at 825 I Street. Please call Mr. Cameron Sr. at Whitehorse, Taku Hotel, room 111. He said you can call collect. We want to remind you, too, that Rita Calloway says that 10 or 12 members of the Jack Henry American Legion Auxiliary are needed to report about 6:30 this morning to assist there with the people who have been kept in the public shelter.
Have that guy come down here immediately, and if he wants to, bring these things with him, but come right here, right now.
Rod, how do you pronounce it? Rod Charrier of the Inlet Company. Rod Charrier of the Inlet Company. He is requested to report to the Public Safety Building as soon as possible. If you have these supplies with you, Mr. Charrier, bring them with you. If not, get here immediately anyway. The supplies requested are 4 hard hats, 1 wire cutter, 1 screwdriver, 1 pliers, and 1 hammer. Rod Charrier of the Inlet Company, please report to the Public Safety Building as soon as possible. We also have word from Donald Penner of the sanitation engineer of the Greater Anchorage Health District, informing us that the water distribution centers will be set up at all local schools. These water tanks will more than likely be available within another 3 hours. What time is it now, by the way? It is now 6 o'clock, or a few minutes before 6. So by 9 o'clock, we should have a complete water distribution center set up at all of the schools in the local area. We have a message here asking Barbara Capjohn to please go to the Alaska Native Service Hospital as soon as possible and stay with Mary Woolcock. Barbara Capjohn, please go to the Alaska Native Service Hospital as soon as possible and stay with Mary Woolcock. We want to remind you, too, that a personnel or a displaced family identification center and a center where families who have been split during the night can be reunited is being set up at the Salvation Army headquarters at the corner of 8th and Barra. This office will be open at 8 o'clock. Everybody who has taken a family or even an individual into your homes or into a public building to give them shelter during the night, if you will please take a census of the people that are in that shelter and get this census to the Salvation Army headquarters at the corner of 8th and Barra. They will need to know names. It would also be helpful if you can get ages or addresses and who the parents are. If you have children and no parents, then when this census is turned in to the Salvation Army will operate as a clearinghouse in order to get these broken families back together. Several volunteers have already offered their services to assist in this classification project there at the Salvation Army. However, we do not know at this time how much additional help will be needed. Efforts are also being made to get a little bit more permanent shelter for these families when they are put back together. And we will be informing you over KENI what the arrangements are and where you will report to get your assignment. The Red Cross is bringing in supplies. The military is bringing in supplies. The federal government has been requested to declare this a disaster area. We can expect assistance to arrive here today from the outside, either the South 48 or from other cities within Anchorage, within Alaska. Fairbanks officials officials made a quick, hurried trip down here in a chartered airplane, Wing Airlines airplane, last night to survey the situation and offer their help wherever possible. They have notified their crews and their utility departments to be alerted and stand by if their assistance is needed here in Anchorage in order to get our utilities back into operation or to assist in sanitation and health problems. They will be brought to Anchorage to assist us in any way possible. And according to Mayor Darrell Brewington of Fairbanks, Fairbanks can operate on a skeleton crew while they're helping their sister city, Anchorage, in our time of distress. Roy Gilman has also put out a call for Mr. Claus of Fairbanks to get him as much bread as possible down here to Anchorage. It's, of course, impossible for our local bakeries to operate without power and without water. So bread is coming in out of Fairbanks, too. The military will be supplying water tanks. The Greater Anchorage Health District is setting up water distribution centers. They will be located at all the schools in the local area. The military community of the Greater Anchorage area have also offered about a number of field kitchens. These two will be set up at strategic places throughout the area. All of the families who have gone without hot food, as well as those who have been working throughout the night and will continue to work day and night for the coming weeks, will have warm food and warm clothing, thanks to our military brothers, thanks to the Red Cross, thanks to Civil Defense. We have a report here that the Air National Guard will you go? Who gave me this message? Air National Guard? Oh, who is it? Somebody in particular that you want?
Haven Rest Home. The Air National Guard has got some Herman Nelson heaters out there, and they both quit. The patients are without any heat out there, and they've provided them. And the Herman Nelsons have quit. We want to get them started again.
Oh, all right. So the Woodhaven Rest Home needs the assistance of somebody from the Air National Guard to get the Herman Nelson heaters in service again. The Air National Guard had supplied these heaters as emergency gear at the Woodhaven Rest Home out in Spenard, and now they are having some difficulty with it. So anybody who can get these heaters back into operation is requested to please go to the Woodhaven Rest Home as soon as possible. If you'll stay tuned to KENI throughout the day and throughout the night, we will continue to offer our services to get your emergency messages out over the Anchorage area and out of the state when possible. We will also be bringing you regular reports on where emergency stations will be set up for food, for clothing, for shelter, for first aid, and for water supplies. We will bring you current and up-to-date information on the situation so far as our utilities are concerned and so far as our health and sanitation facilities are concerned. By the way, they have warned us that with water and sewage in the condition it is in, and with the sewer lines broken and sewage seeping to the top of the ground, with the water mains broken and foreign bodies getting into the water supply, we do naturally stand the chance of having a health problem. So public health nurses are setting up an inoculation center at Civil Defense Headquarters on East 5th Avenue. East 5th Avenue Civil Defense Headquarters, where a stepped-up program of inoculations is going to be put into operation this morning. We might remind you, too, aside from the water tanks that will be stationed throughout the Anchorage area, if you are getting water through your taps, and there are some areas in town that are still getting water, but this water stands a good chance of being polluted. So take every precaution to make sure that the water is pure. If even the water you're getting out of your tap, if you will use a half a teaspoon, 1 teaspoon of home-type bleach, your laundry bleach, to every 5 gallons of water, why this will give you safe water according to our word from the Greater Anchorage Health District. We have word here that Mary Sweet is asked to contact her mother. Mother is at home. Mary Sweet's mother is looking for her, and the mother is at home. If they are not able to get together this way, we might also remind you that a personnel clearinghouse is being set up at the Salvation Army at the corner of 8th and Barra starting at 8 o'clock this morning. But we will continue to work with the Salvation Army and to work with any of you in the Anchorage area who need assistance in getting your families back together. Well, I guess that just about brings us up to date on the messages and the situation as it exists right now in rescue headquarters here in the Public Safety Building. Oh, I do have one more item. I understand that the Anchorage Westward Hotel had quite a few out-of-town guests staying in it. Naturally, they were evacuated. I understand no one was injured or anything, but they were evacuated for safety, according to one of the guests who has been down here in the rescue headquarters today. He said he had arrived from New York last night and intended to continue to Japan today. He does have the little problem of how to get his baggage from the hotel, since people are being discouraged from going into the downtown area. Electric power, should everything... The Municipal Power and Light Department is going to make every effort to restore power to the area right away, and in order to do it, they need everybody to turn the power off. We don't want any drainage when they kick these turbines on the line. So if everybody in the Anchorage area will turn your electric power off and give the city an opportunity to get their turbines on the air, on the line, turn your power off. We also have a request that all employees, all line personnel of the Chugach Electric Association report to work as soon as possible, and all personnel working at the Knick Arm plant for Chugach Electric are also requested to report to work as soon as possible. Tommy, did you have something you wanted to say? Lieutenant Tomlinson.
Yes, Orrin Hillman, Director of Public Works, would like for the manager of the BLM office at 6th and Cordova to report to him down here, plus the manager of Penny's. He would like to contact both of those individuals as soon as possible.
The manager of Penny's and the manager of the BLM office, I believe that's Roger Robinson, the manager of the BLM office, are requested to contact Orrin Hillman here at the Public Safety Building, the corner of 6th and C, as soon as possible. We have a message for T.O. Hughes in Soldotna. Your family in Anchorage is okay. We have a message reporting that an elderly lady at 216 East 8th Avenue who lives alone, would somebody in that neighborhood please check her home for safety? We have no name on her, but we do have a request that somebody in the neighborhood check 216 East 8th Avenue and see if the sweet lady is all right. Yes, Theda?
And we just received a call. All structural and architectural engineers working, the section engineers working for the U.S. District of Army Engineers are to report to room 111, District of Engineers building at Elmendorf.
Okay, and so that's all structural and architectural engineers.
The section crews working for the U.S. District of Army Engineers are to report to room 111, District of Engineers building at Elmendorf.
And do that as soon as possible. Well, the rescue operations and the teams have gotten to the point where they're coordinated very nicely. The construction workers have turned out by the droves and have registered in the north end of the hall here at the Public Safety Building. Skilled craftsmen and particularly electricians are registering in the courtroom at the north end of the hall here in the Public Safety Building. We have had some people come in and offer transportation. They have been kind enough to stand around back out of the way and wait, because there are times when personnel come in and they don't have transportation to get from one vital point to another, and we can call for these people who have a car to offer. This also has been appreciated. However, we don't want to encourage any more to come at this time. If we need you, we will let you know. We might also remind you that Dr. Langston has reported from Providence Hospital that there is no immediate need for whole blood blood at Providence at this time. There had been a call earlier. However, they do not need it at this time. They will notify us here at the Public Safety Building when the need for whole blood becomes apparent again. But for right now, you do not need to bother Providence Hospital offering blood. We'll tell you when it's needed, and then you can go to Providence. We might also remind you, too, that all of the doctors' offices in Anchorage are closed for today. These doctors are out doing emergency work. Many of them are doing their work at Providence Hospital and at Alaska Native Service Hospital. Presbyterian Hospital is still not functional right now, operational. And any patients who need to see a doctor can check in through the emergency room of the Providence Hospital, and you will be cared for there. Is there any other message we have to?
No, not at the present time.
So that is all we have to inform you about here at the Rescue Central at Public Safety Building at 6th and C, and back to Ty in the Kenai camper.
I think Bill Berry has a report. Come in, Bill.
Thank you, Ty. I'm sitting here in downtown Anchorage at the corner of 4th and D. I just drove down past Penny's, which I said is completely demolished. J.C. Penney's is a total loss. Everywhere I look, there are fissures in the pavement. The loose Axone building has a split right up the center. It's a very small split, but obviously it is split directly in half. There's a large 6-inch lift in the pavement. All along the buildings on D Street, the pavement just seems to have sunk about 6 inches into the ground. Either that or the buildings are lifted up. I can't ascertain which. All along, everywhere you look, you see fissures in the pavement. You see holes in the road. And here where I'm sitting, facing the bay at 4th and D, where there used to be a vacant lot right next to Anchorage Hardware and Sporting Goods, there is no more a vacant lot. There is a hole in the ground between 20 and 25 feet deep. It has between 5 and 10 cars in it in various states of destruction. Anchorage Hardware and Sporting Goods has sunk directly down into the ground. There is nothing left of Anchorage Hardware and Sporting Goods. It is still standing, but it is approximately 10 feet lower than it was before. Turning right on 4th Avenue after coming off of D, going down past Kozlowski's store for men, Seidenberg & K's, Northern Jewelers, the arcade, all along this block, these houses, these shops of business, these places of business have all sunk further down into the ground as you get down on 4th Avenue. Between D and C on 4th, there is a large chasm 30 feet deep in the middle of 4th Avenue. There's just barely room for a car to get by on the road. The rest of the road has sunk completely down into the ground all along the entire block between D and C on 4th Avenue. It's a complete loss on the bay side. The other side seems to have sustained very little damage, including audio cam, although their windows are boarded up. They did lose their windows. And Dicey's shop, the tailor shop there is fine. In fact, the corner shop here of Dicey's didn't even lose any window glass. But on the other side of the road, it's a complete contrast. There is nothing left. The buildings are a complete loss. I don't even see how they're going to build that side of the road up again to what it was before. I look down to my left and I can see buildings leaning at crazy angles. The Anchorage Westward Hotel, from all outward views, has sustained no damage, but I know it has. It doesn't seem to be in bad shape at all. In fact, the construction lifts on the side still seem to be completely intact. I'll go down there and take a closer look and call you back.
All right, Bill, thank you. Julia and Alec Barnes and Ann and Karen Tolentoff from Cordova are here at the Public Safety Building and are in all okay, in good condition. Let's go back downtown now to Jim Dodson.
Thank you very much, Tyler. Boy, we're sitting here listening to Bill Berry's report. It's fantastic, really. We're Selby Dalton just showed up here, and he's been kind of taking a little survey of the area, too, and there's some of the buildings that we didn't even realize were damaged, which are no longer there. We have one message here to Roy McGregor at Cape Yagataga. We want him down there and the other people to know that his family and all his friends and that are with his family there are all safe. That's Roy McGregor at Cape Yagataga. Everything's fine with your family here in Anchorage. I hope everything's fine down that way.
Turn the top down so she can hear me.
Okay, I guess you're having problems in there, huh?
Just throw the switch on.
Why don't you, well, we can do that, I guess. Okay, fine. She can't hear the telephone. We got a gal here helping us out. Mary Ellen's here to help us out and keep the phone messages coming in, and we'll try to get these messages on as they come in. Once again, Bob Seaman from Seaman's Sporting Goods phoned and is trying to get in contact with Judy Seaman. They are up above the store. Bob Seaman family are up above the store. They'd like to get a hold of Judy Seaman or have her contact them so they'll know where she is. Once again, also, in regard to the Pacific Northern Airlines plane, jet, which is coming in with Governor Egan aboard, it'll land at Elmendorf at 12 o'clock. Now, this plane, I understand that there are 2 PNA planes which will be landing at that time, and both of these planes are going out again. Both of these planes are going to leave again immediately after unloading. They're going to leave again immediately after unloading. So that's the word from PNA. The planes will arrive at 12 noon, and you know, I kind of feel, Charlie, like I was on a ship. I remember when I went over over to the Pacific many years ago on a ship. For days afterwards, after I got off that ship, I was still weaving. And I'm still weaving right now. I'm not sure whether it's because of hunger or whether we're not having a tremor because nothing else is moving in here. It must be just me. Which reminds me, the Kenai crew down here, there's about 10 of us around here somewhere. If there's any coffee or sandwiches that could be brought up to us, we would certainly appreciate something because not any of us have eaten anything here for quite some time. And we'd certainly appreciate some sandwiches up this way. Tyler, do you have anything down that way?
Yeah, we could go for some sandwiches too, and some coffee and some cigarettes. I'm not really too hungry, but I sure can go for cigarettes. We have more military personnel arriving here at 6th and C, Jim. There have been 4 or 5 busloads, and also some trucks with heavy equipment coming in here. Everything is being headquartered here and assigned to various tasks from this area. The Little Red Wagon has just left the building now. It's on an emergency run. The Little Red Wagon. Okay, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. I think, Marilyn, maybe we have some messages in there. Maybe we have some messages that we could bring in here and pass them along. Selby Dalton, thank you. He's going in and getting them. This is KENI in Anchorage, Alaska. I see our break time went by there and forgot about it. This is KENI in Anchorage, Alaska, broadcasting under emergency conditions. We have our full facilities working, downtown studio, the transmitter studio, the camper is working at the public safety building. We have our remote units in the field. We're covering this disaster and passing on public service information as quickly as we possibly can. We have a message here to daughter Patty Scott is staying with her father. Anyone knowing the whereabouts is asked to call FA 22754. That's daughter Patty Scott staying with father. Anyone knowing the whereabouts, please call FA 22752 if you can get through. Here's a message, another message to Juneau. The Charles C. Puta family, P-U-T-A, in Juneau, from the Christ family. Everything is okay, and they are asked to notify outside relatives if you possibly can. Yes, go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, I would like to set someone's mind at ease here. The mother of David Clevenger. The mother of David Clevenger. We've just been notified that David Clevenger is safe. He is with, staying with a Dick Myers at Turnagain. He is safe. David Clevenger is safe. Nat Brooke has arrived on the scene here now. We have our full complement now. And Bill Berry is wanting to come in, so come in, Bill, on your newsmobile. Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you, Ty. I'm sitting in front of the Anchorage Daily Times building. I have Rich Adkett here. I believe is my reporter for the Times. He's going to give us a report on what's going on inside the Anchorage Daily Times building.
We're picking up the pieces. The second floor newsroom is more of a mess than much great damage. The filing boxes and chandeliers have all come down. The dark room's turned upside down. But we're putting it back in order. The lack of power in the building prevents us from giving any estimate of when a paper is going to be out today. Many members of the Times staff have reported for duty and are clearing up the mess right now. The presses appear to be in good shape. The composing room has a pretty thick layer of type on the floor, but we're getting things cleared up and should be going back into business pretty soon.
Thank you very much. Report there. And I have a few additions to make, Ty. I drove down 4th Avenue, the courthouse and the post office, and 4th Avenue Theater seemingly have sustained no damage from the outside, but of course, you are more able to report damage on the inside of the 4th Avenue Theater building than I am. As I said, seemingly from the outside, both buildings sustained very little damage, but we do know for a fact that inside they are not in very good shape. The Matanuska Valley Bank has split up and down the front. It's separated from the NC Company by approximately 6 inches. Northern Commercial Company has one window left in a long string of between 12 and 15 windows on the front of it. And I'm going to travel further down 4th Avenue and see if things get better or worse in that direction.
All right, the call that we put out for heavy equipment, it seems that the people with heavy equipment are coming here to the Public Safety Building at 6th and C. We want you to go to 9th and E. 9th and E to the Park Strip. That is where this emergency or heavy equipment pool is being set up. And be sure to notify Civil Defense the kind of equipment that you have, and also if the piece of machinery has a driver with it. All equipment will be dispatched from 9th and C between C and E Streets on 9th Avenue over there on the Park Strip. Now, the Civil Defense Headquarters number is Broadway 58481. Broadway 58481. Take that heavy equipment to the Park Strip, 9th and E. All right, Jim, back to you.
Right, Toto, we just got an addition to the legislative report, which we passed on a moment ago. The House met only long enough to approve a recess in Juneau just a few moments ago. They will recess until Friday, April 3rd at 2 p.m., subject to the Speaker or the Speaker pro tem calling it back into session for emergency purposes. Now, the Senate took the same action about 5 minutes later, subject to the same emergency call by the Senate President. As we mentioned here a moment ago, the Senate President and the House Speaker have got with Governor Egan this morning, and they have now declared that they'll be in recess until April 3rd at 2 p.m. Also, Governor Egan, state officials, Anchorage legislators with families here will be flying up on a special PNA flight, which is leaving Juneau about noon, it says today, which is 2 hours later here, so they'll have plenty of time to get in here by noon. I noticed that we're still experiencing very, very small and light tremors here in the Anchorage area. We, of course, don't want anybody to panic when you feel these tremors, but we're still trembling here a little bit, especially in this studio, which is floated on oil. Here's another one. The PNA flight from Seattle is not off the ground yet. Landing clearance has caused delay. We also have crew aboard waiting. This is from Seattle.
Survey crews that is going out checking these buildings, that all 3 units of the E&E apartments have been evacuated and declared unsuitable for human occupancy. This means, of course, that we're going to have some more displaced families to find shelter for. These people who have been evacuated from the E&E apartments have been told, or you can accept the word from us, that a caretaker will be at the E&E apartments. You will have to register with that caretaker to go in the building. They will allow only 10 at a time to go in the building and bring out your most precious belongings. The same thing is true of the Sheraton Arms, which is just below the Gilded Cage. We had announced earlier that this was the same procedure that is being used at the Mount McKinley apartments. We are still needing some appraisers, real estate people, engineers, anyone familiar with buildings and costs. Please go to the Luzak Library on F Street between 4th and 5th Avenue to assist in this survey of property damage and to establish how many buildings in the area must be evacuated for human safety.
Okay, we've been posed the question, since President Johnson has just declared Alaska a major disaster area, we're wondering about the legal problems that we might have. We're trying to get some kind of legal opinions from the officials here. I don't know whether we can or not. Theta Conley's standing by inside the building. Let's switch into Theta.
Yes, we've had a very special call, Ty, and I think it's very worthwhile. If the people would please call us down here to say if you have an artesian well with drinking water available, please do call us. Let us know where the water is available in the various neighborhoods, because, of course, it's no surprise that most people do not have drinking water, and especially those with small children in their family.